League of Women Voters will be conducting this evening's forum for candidates for the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, District 5, on behalf of the neighborhood associations, the Old Town, New Monterey, and Monterey Vista. The three candidates who are running for office are, in alphabetical order, Kate Daniels, Alan Haffa, and Bill Lipe. District 5 is an open seat. No incumbent is running. The winner of the seat will serve a 4-year term. If any candidate receives more than 50% of the vote during the March 5 primary, that candidate will be elected to office. If not, the top 2 candidates will run off in the November general election. Okay, we're ready to go. So we're going to have open statements starting with Kate Daniels, then Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa. So Kate Daniels, 2 minutes.
Just a thank you, a general thank you. I won't thank individuals because I don't want to break the rule. But I really am grateful to be here, and it's wonderful to connect with all of you in this forum. I am looking forward to hearing your questions because it helps me understand what your concerns are. I've been living in Monterey County, and I've been living in the 5th District for most of my life. I was born and raised here. When it comes to the unique challenges that we face here on the Monterey Peninsula, I believe that more is possible, and that's why I have gotten into this race, and I'm running for supervisor.
I'm running in this race, and I'm running for supervisor because I believe more is possible. We face unique challenges in Monterey County and on the Monterey Peninsula. We need to produce housing that is affordable for all our community members. We need to have a healthy and sustainable environment. We need a long-term, affordable water supply. We need improved economic opportunities for our young people and our community members. We need a safe and vibrant community for all of us to live in. As a planning commissioner and as a policy advisor for Senator Laird and a nonprofit director here on the Monterey Peninsula, I have worked to end homelessness, to build housing, to help make our communities more resilient to wildfires and flooding. I'm running for supervisor because I believe more is possible. Thank you.
Good evening, fellow residents of District 5. My name is Bill Lipe. I was born and raised in Monterey County. I left for a time, came back in 2007. Monterey County has always been a very special place for me. It's my home, and I care very much about it. In 2007, I came back after having a career in information technology up at Visa in Foster City. I came home to be part of our family business, which is an agriculture company in Salinas and Greenfield. It really marked my time as serving our community here in Monterey County. I've served on various boards and committees. I was on the Groundwater Sustainability Agency that oversaw managing, developing management plans, sustainability plans for over 500,000 acre-feet of water that's extracted every year in the valley. I have really a few main things I'm really going to be focused on. Water management is number one. Nothing can be done, especially in this district, without a sustainable water supply. As we all know, District 5, especially here on the peninsula, has a very difficult task in solving that issue. I have some very good ideas that are being studied right now that I think can take that issue off the map. Fiscal responsibility is a big issue. Our county constantly runs at a deficit position. In 2019, they were $90 million in the hole, looking 3 years out. COVID happened. They got an emergency rescue plan, took care of that $90 million, except now looking 3 years out, it looks like we're another $100 million in debt. So I want to get off this carousel of debt that we always seem to be dealing with. I think we can improve our school achievement, not only here in District 5, but in the county as a whole. And I really just ask you to consider me as a vote. I know I'm from the Salinas Valley. I know that's maybe not the optimum for peninsula cities to look at, but you've had 24 years of leadership here and gotten zero progress on water supply. I've delivered water supply issues and policy making in the Salinas Valley. I'm ready to bring it here to District 5. Thank you.
Mr. Haffa.
Yeah, I'm Monterey Council Member, Dr. Alan Haffa. I'm a first-generation college student who grew up in a working-class family. My wife, Arlene, and I have been married 38 years, and we helped each other earn our PhDs together and raise our kids together. As you know, I've been a council member here 12 years. I think I've accomplished a lot together with you and with our council and with our staff. Just look at how our city has changed over the last decade. We have fixed our roads. The county, incidentally, has really bad roads. We fixed them here in Monterey. We can do that for the county. We have addressed homelessness in the city of Monterey. We still have work to do, and we could do a lot more with help from the county. We've protected our environment in so many ways. Not helping cruise ships come and take up space in the harbor. Banning plastic bags, banning plastic straws. We've done a lot to protect our environment. We can do a lot more for the county as well. We've expanded affordable housing. We still have a lot of work to do on that. We passed a small cell ordinance, which I'm very proud of. We worked together with our community to make sure that residences were protected from radiation from small cells. We've improved traffic, and this was the #1 thing I heard 12 years ago. Traffic on Lighthouse, traffic on Lighthouse, traffic on Highway 68. I advocated strongly for the roundabout. People said it wouldn't work. It's worked. Traffic on Highway 68 going out of town, much better. We put in smart lights on Lighthouse. It's much better. I've delivered for the city. I'll deliver for the county.
Question number 1. We will start with Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa, and then Kate Daniels. I will ask the question. Each candidate will have up to 90 seconds to respond. Okay, so here's the first question. Your thoughts about public ownership of Cal-Am water. Excuse me. I was going to read that first, so you have a moment to think, and then I was going to describe who was going to speak, so I'm going to do that now. Bill Lipe will speak, and then Alan Haffa, and then Kate Daniels. So, Mr. Lipe.
Yeah, ever since Measure J passed, with I believe 57% of the vote, I've advocated for the county and whomever else needs to hear it to listen to what voters have to say. I'm not a huge fan of Cal-Am. I had to deal with them at the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. They did a lot of maneuvering in our agency. Obviously, we have Luis Alego was on the board. Mayor Gunter from the Salinas was on that board. There was a lot of manipulation, I believe, of our board to side with the county and to side with Cal-Am because of some whatever belief they have that Cal-Am is somehow some sort of idol out there that has to be upheld. I think asking ourselves or demanding of ourselves that we have a public entity managing one of our most important utilities, water, is not a big ask to make. It's been done in other areas. I know there's been many stories run about how other places have done it. It's not going to be necessarily easy. You've got to find the right organization to do it. And I don't know if folks have faith in the water agency or in the district itself to manage it, but Cal-Am does not have to be the water purveyor for this district. We can be flexible, and most importantly, we should be listening to you, the people that actually voted to say you want to do something different. Thank you.
Mr. Haffa.
So in 2014, when George Riley came to me with Public Water Now, and he said, I need your support. I need you to support public water. I was the only elected official at that time to support Measure O. I also supported the next measure, Measure P in 2018. In fact, I signed the ballot statements for both of those measures. Why? Because CalAm's a regulated but poorly regulated monopoly. If we were talking about a free market where there was competition, that would be a whole different story. We're talking about a monopoly which has an incentive to charge all of us as much as possible for what is a basic human need. We all need water. We need it for our housing. We need it for our businesses. They've developed a lack of trust with the community. They basically sued our neighbors and lost the ability to collaborate with them to build a water supply. They have a built-in incentive. They can charge however expensive it is, they can charge 10% more of a profit margin. That means the bigger the plant, the bigger the water supply, the more expensive it is, the better it is for them. We need public oversight. We need public and community engagement with this most important water supply. And so that's where a public agency comes in. We get a voice, we get a say.
So I support Measure J, I support public ownership, and I'm really excited about where we're at in this stage in the process and look forward to moving forward with Measure J. I moved back to the area, I moved back to the Monterey Peninsula. I was living in Prunedale during Measure O. It was a game my son and I used to play about who's yes on O and who's no on O. It was a question that my young child started to ask people publicly if we met them in the store. Are you no on O? Are you yes on O? The difference between then for Measure O and Measure J was the number of elected officials we were able to get behind J. And as a result, the only no on J's you saw were 100% funded by CalAm, and the community was really rallying behind Measure J. That is the kind of relationships I feel like I have with our county leaders and our state legislators, and it was reaching out to folks like Bill Monning and saying, hey, Bill, we're not going to get Measure J passing this time. It could fail like O failed if we don't get some big voices behind it. That was a role I played in that campaign, getting our elected officials that had some clout to get behind measures like Measure O. Obviously, a return on investment on something that's a human necessity, having investors on something that we cannot truly live without. There's no place for CalAm in our community. I'm so excited to see them go. It's time, the time has passed, and let's move forward. And yes on J.
Question number 2. What are your thoughts about short-term rentals? Alan Haffa will start, and then Kate Daniels, and then Bill Lipe.
So, as those of you who are Monterey residents know, we banned short-term rentals, vacation rentals, and we did it for a number of reasons. Number one, it is an impact on neighborhoods. It turns what are residential neighborhoods into essentially commercial business ventures. It can create other negative impacts in terms of noise, pollution. Plus, do you want to live in a neighborhood where you actually have real neighbors? I think most people do. So that's what worked for us, that's what we heard from you, and that's what we did in Monterey. Monterey County's a bigger area, there's different communities, and there are different attitudes towards vacation rentals. First and foremost, I will support very strongly that we actually get a policy. We need to have a policy so people know what the rules of the road are. I believe that hosted rentals are different than non-hosted. In other words, if there is a person who lives there in that house, that's different. And I'm okay with allowing hosted vacation rentals. In other places though, and for other types of rentals, we need to make sure we don't have too many in one place. We need to make sure we have enforcement like we have in the city of Monterey. And we need to talk to the individual neighborhoods and communities to find out what they want.
Kate Daniels.
Thank you. I live in unincorporated Monterey County, and I can tell you there's already too many short-term rentals in many of our neighborhoods. Monterey County, unincorporated, has been languishing on top of a county ordinance for short-term rentals for a decade now. The problem that we have faced in Monterey County is the Board of Supervisors has not given clear direction to the county staff from the start. What are the policies they want in place? It's been wishy-washy from the beginning. The bottom line is we are facing a housing crisis in Monterey County, and every time we allow for a short-term rental to continue in our neighborhoods, we are removing housing from the housing stock that once housed our community members. At this point in time, in our county, when the housing crisis is as dire as it is, I really do not believe there is a place for short-term rentals. We need an ordinance. I live in Carmel Valley. We have 168 short-term rentals in my community right around me. That means there are streets that are not that, a street I used to live on, El Caminito, not that big of a street, not that long of a street. We've got 12 short-term rentals on El Caminito alone. There is an environmental document that's being circulated now. The comment period ends very shortly, and it addresses some of the impacts of short-term rentals. It's something that everybody should look into and should be responding to that lives in unincorporated Monterey County at this time. And in fact, it impacts all of you here as well, because that loss of housing is impacting members who work in our community in the incorporated part of Monterey as well.
Thank you. Bill Lipe.
Yeah, it is quite shocking that the county has taken so long to develop an ordinance on this topic. You know, I think telling people what they can do with their private property is always a very tricky issue. You know, some people are very defensive about being able to do what they want to do on their land, as long as they're not infringing on other people's, you know, peace of quiet or traffic issues and whatnot. I think Alan brought up a good point in that, you know, hosted short-term rentals are a bit different. You've got somebody that lives there, owns a house, that is subletting some of their space. Sometimes it's just for a weekend, but I know of other issues where, you know, you've got professors coming in or doctors coming in for some sort of training, or IT type of people coming in for 6-7 week period, and they need a place to stay and they don't want to necessarily stay at a hotel. So I think there's room to improve this. I know, I also live in unincorporated Monterey County. You know, when I was on the Ag Advisory Committee 5-6 years ago, we were talking about this and trying to hammer out a policy for the planning department. You know, there are some instances, or maybe a lot of instances actually, where you have hunting ranches and whatnot where people come and stay, and there was a big problem of being able to sort that kind of stuff out, and again, concerns about people's private property. So I would hope that we get a policy done, as both candidates, other candidates have said, needs to be done.
Thank you. Question number 3 is the person writing this question has a definite point of view. What will you do on the county board to combat the use of pesticides and chemicals and clean up the contamination of our water? Kate Daniels will go first, and then Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa. Kate Daniels.
So I sit on the Monterey County Planning Commission, and we recently issued a permit to a community for a water system that got them off bottled water, and they've been on bottled water since I was in high school, since the 1980s, the late 1980s. And we have other communities throughout Monterey County who also do not have access to clean water and have been relying on bottled water. This is a big problem. This is a really big problem. So what would I do as a board, a member? I think it's prioritizing where there's referrals needed, but the biggest thing, and I dealt with this just today for a community in South County when I received a call from Senator Laird, is working with supervisors to figure out how we can be effective in helping a community solve a problem as big as this. And the response, the call I got was that there was a supervisor who was essentially just grandstanding and yelling and blaming everybody else in the room for the problem. And the request I got from the senator that I worked for was drill down the problem. Figure out for me what the actual problem is and why we're not able to proceed, so I can be helpful on the state level with the water board and anyone else that we needed to engage to solve this problem. So again, I'm going to go back to my answer. with the short-term rentals. The supervisors need to prioritize the problem, number one, and then they need to work with our legislators, work with all the resources we have to solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Bill Lipe, 90 seconds.
Yeah, the biggest issue with a lot of water systems, and I know this from a lot of experience, is nitrates. It's not pesticides, it's actual nitrate contamination in the water. San Lucas is a good example. They've been having big problems with their water system. Part of it's their process of how they determine whether a water system's nitrate contaminated or not. Sometimes it spikes, sometimes it's fine. As far as pesticides are concerned, I mean, there's been a lot of work here in Monterey County. I was on the Ag Advisory Committee when they took on the challenge of building a notification system. It was mostly for folks over in the Pajaro side of Monterey County, over by Watsonville. But I think it's something that can be done really throughout the county in areas where there is farming, which is take care to not apply during school hours, obviously. Late nights, weekends are the best time to do it. That's what they're doing now. The issue is, I mean, are you going to stop it completely? I mean, there are people who want to put 5-mile buffers around cities and schools. If you take 5 miles of acreage out of production, I mean, you're going to have a lot of people probably, first of all, suing. It is a right to farm county. That's something to remember about Monterey County. And I think the best thing is continued dialogue. Work with agriculture. They're very innovative. They can do things differently and hopefully develop better products that maybe aren't as lethal or sometimes lethal. And again, it's a battle between a lot of agriculture and where they put schools and where we're expanding these cities outwards into farm growth.
Thank you. Alan Haffa.
Yeah, political issues don't always lend themselves to 90-second responses, and this is one of them. It's actually complicated, as Bill mentioned. Agriculture is an important industry. It's the biggest industry in our county. Lots of people rely on it for their livelihood. So we have to be smart and we have to be careful about how we address these issues. That being said, chlorpyrifos is a very dangerous insecticide, and there are other dangerous chemicals that are applied. Now here's the thing, the growers and the farmers, they have their kids in our schools. They drink that water, they live in this community. They have a shared interest in making sure that our water is clean and that our the crops we grow are perceived as being grown with clean water. So I do think we have to approach them as partners and not as enemies. And I think that if we approach them in that way, we can persuade them to adopt cleaner, more friendly practices. My wife, Dr. Arlene Haffa, just got a $5 million grant to actually do that. She's working with growers to try to help them adopt ag practices that will have less of a negative impact on the watershed. So there are ways that you can grow and still have positive, production, but you have to do it in a very smart way. And you can't look at this as if it's a one-size-fits-all. Let's just ban insecticides or let's just ban, nitrates.
Thank you. Question number 4. 26 inmates have died in county jail since 2015. This death rate is twice the national average. Despite concerns with the healthcare provider WellPath, the Board of Supervisors renewed their contract. What are you going to do about this dilemma? This will be answered first by Bill Lipe, then Alan Haffa, and then Kate Daniels. Mr. Lipe.
Well, the quick answer is we need an oversight board with the Inspector General that has subpoena powers. It needs to be done. There are certain issues that the Sheriff's Department has brought up about, case workload and whatnot. But the county controls the fiscal end of the Sheriff's Department. And we're paying out a $10 million settlement on the issues that have happened in the last few years. We had 2 county councils, Charles McKee and then Les Gerard, who, in my opinion, did an awful job of keeping everything secret. In fact, I don't even think the supervisors knew the extent of the problem, because obviously the problem was so bad that it resulted in a multi-million-dollar legal settlement that we're going to have to pay out for the next 8 or 9 years. Another statistic that wasn't mentioned in the question was at 3 times the national rate of suicide in our jail. So this is a really awful situation, in my opinion. It was bottled up for a long time and held, the public wasn't informed. Apparently the supervisors weren't informed. And, I'm kind of glad Les Gerard's gone and Charles McKee are gone. I don't think they did this county a lot of help in a lot of various areas. But the jail in particular is a bad one. We need the oversight committee and an inspector general that can subpoena the sheriff's department when necessary. Thank you.
Alan Haffa.
People dying in our jails, that's on our watch. We all bear a responsibility. And it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's a human rights issue. It's a civil rights issue. And I agree with Bill, it's also a fiscal responsibility issue. Because we didn't do a good job of taking care of prisoners who were in our care, we've been hit with a lawsuit that is costing us a lot of money. If we had had a sheriff's oversight committee 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had that lawsuit. We wouldn't have had that settlement because we would have been doing the right thing from the start. So some of us may think, well, I'm not in jail, maybe I don't know anybody who's in jail, not my problem. But we all collectively bear that responsibility. And we have to make sure that people are treated properly, that they're getting the health care they deserve. Plus, it's shameful that the county renewed their contract with this for-profit company that isn't doing a good job, that isn't meeting the expectations of their contract, and yet the county renewed that contract. That's the kind of thing I wouldn't do. I would say, no, we're not going to renew that contract. We're going to go out to bids. We're going to recruit other companies and organizations, and maybe we could even work with our own county hospital, Natividad, to provide those services.
Thank you. Kate Daniels.
A couple of things. First of all, I'm born and raised here, so I've had friends that have been in the jail, and I've been the recipient of phone calls from mothers who have children in the jail who have been experiencing conditions that are unacceptable, especially during the COVID pandemic. Folks who had to survive, jailmates who are having COVID, themselves having COVID. WellPath has been a problem for years. The county renewing the contract with WellPath is outrageous. And I've wondered for years, and as supervisor would like to look deeper into why Natividad Hospital doesn't provide these services for our very own county jail. To continue to have this outside entity that we pay a lot of money doing this work when we have a terrific jail, a terrific hospital right here in Monterey County is something that we need to look into. Audits and oversight are critical. I would support all of the above when it comes to looking into what's happening in addition to what we have to already do for the settlement that we have because of the Hernandez lawsuit. And the last thing I'll say is that we have a new sheriff. She has been in office for only 1 year. I worked on her campaign to help change the culture, change the sheriff, change the gender, to do everything we could to make a difference in that jail. So I am really hopeful that we are going to see some progress with Tina Nieto as our new sheriff.
Thank you. So question number 5, do you have any creative ideas to help solve the homeless problem in Monterey County? We'll be starting first with Alan Haffa, and then going to Kate Daniels, and then going to Bill Lipe. Mr. Haffa.
Well, what can I say? This is an issue I've been working on for a decade. When I first was elected in 2012, I ran because I had a student who showed up to my class with a wet paper. And I asked her, why do you have a wet paper? It's because she was sleeping in a tent in the forest behind MPC and it rained. That's what motivated me to run. And I've been working tirelessly on that issue ever since. We organized a symposium, I co-hosted it, called the Hungry and Homeless in Paradise Symposium. We invited city staff, county staff, sheriffs, police, community members, and believe it or not, homeless people themselves, because they actually have a say in what happens to them. And we identified gaps in service. People who were sleeping in their cars, who were being forced to move all night long with nowhere to safely park their car. I got 30 seconds, I could go on for an hour. We have women. There were no services for women in the county at that time. Youth. There were only 6 beds in the whole county for runaway and homeless youth. We've tripled that to 18 with the help of the city of Monterey. We've added apartment units for veterans at the Veterans Transition Center. We've built 2 shelters for homeless women through Community Human Services, on the board of which I serve and helped develop the strategic plan that made that a priority. We've got a lot of work to do still, but
Thank you.
we're getting there.
Kate Daniels.
So Casa de Noche Buena was started by Community Human Services and Gathering for Women. And I was the executive director when we were able to secure $1.5 million of funding from the state in order to open the very first shelter for women and families with children on the Monterey Peninsula, and that was Casa de Noche Buena. That was a great success, and we needed to create more beds immediately. We have hundreds of women that were on the waiting list for that shelter. So we created the Schumann Heart House. I worked with Mark Schumann, helped him find the location, talked to him about what a planning commissioner does and understands in terms of where the zoning would be appropriate for something like this. Worked with him in terms of finding a location where we would have enough water so we wouldn't see any obstacles. And then working with Senator Laird, we were able to secure $2.5 million in the state budget in order to open that shelter. So when I sit on committees, it's really a roll up your sleeves and make it happen. We need more beds, we need more housing so people don't end up homeless. As was mentioned, in Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, the Unified School District that you guys have in your community, we have 2,000 children that qualify as homeless. What does that mean? It means we need to keep people in their homes. We need more Section 8 housing. We need more wraparound services. We need more assistance to families in the form of rental assistance so they can stay in their homes and don't become homeless. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Lipe.
Yeah, the courts have been very clear. You cannot remove somebody from public property unless you have a bed space for them. Straightforward. I've said this to Chris Lopez, I've said this to other supervisors, former supervisors. We just need to build the bed space so that people have somewhere to go and can be there for the night, or maybe be there for the rest of their life. I mean, we have to understand some folks are going to need a handhold for the rest of their life. They're just not capable of, and I don't mean this in disrespect, they're not able to make the decisions that need to be made to live independently. So, you know, it was sad to see during the COVID time, all this money spent at the fairgrounds on housing for folks that didn't have a house so that they could isolate safely, and I don't think a single person used any of those beds. I mean, millions and millions of dollars were spent on nothing, on vapor. So my innovative idea, not all that innovative, build the bed space to accommodate all the homeless that we have and bundle the services right in where these folks are living. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is there anything more the county could do to find solutions to funding of housing projects? Is there anything more the county could do for solutions for funding housing projects? Kate Daniels will go first, and then Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa.
So we've seen a lot of innovation in some of the jurisdictions around Monterey County, but is there anything else that Monterey County can do to fund housing projects. Well, unincorporated Monterey County, our 5th district, we haven't seen a major project since Pacific Meadows in Carmel Valley, which is a senior living facility that was built many, many years ago. What Monterey County relies on are our affordable housing overlay in our general plan. We rely on an inclusionary housing ordinance, and both of those things do nothing unless someone is showing up with the funding to build that housing. Who are we waiting for? Who's going to be the savior in this? We're waiting for private developers to come in and build the housing based on what we call the inclusionary housing ordinance. The inclusionary housing ordinance has failed us because it requires that a developer build 20% affordable units along with all of the market rate units that they're building in a project. Well, what have we seen happen over and over again? We've seen developers who make the units that are market rate so expensive in order to pencil out the affordable units that we see this domino effect. Every time one of those units sells for so much money, it only drives up the cost of housing in the surrounding neighborhoods. So as a supervisor, we need to look at projects that perhaps nonprofit developers could come in and help us build. We need to bring people to the table, perhaps some public-private partnerships to do innovative projects, and we need to address the inclusionary housing ordinance and see where it is failing us.
Thank you. Bill Lipe.
Yeah, I think talking with the developers to understand how they can include the 20% in their development and still be able to make money. I mean, that always seems to be the biggest issue with developers as well. It doesn't pencil out. I remember a debate I think Kate was involved in about a housing development in Ryan Ranch. They wanted to take some office space, land that was zoned for office space, and build it in 14 units. So the supervisors just wanted 1 or 2 units to be, affordable. And the developers, oh, no way. I mean, we need to be firm with developers. They need to be able to make money. I mean, why put the investment in if you could at least make some money? But I think we need that, as supervisors, as a board of supervisors, we need to stay tough and stand tough to say, you can do this development project, but you got to meet that 20% threshold, or maybe it's 25%. Saying no to these folks is not the end of the world. Somebody is out there. I mean, you go around San Jose, Gilroy, they're building stuff all over the place. I will also say, whatever grand solution the Board of Supervisors and we as a community come up with, you're going to have water. Because if you're going to do it here in District 5, you're not going to get anywhere unless you have an allocation.
Mr. Haffa.
So an inclusionary ordinance means that a developer has to build a certain percentage of the housing units as affordable. Whatever that means, we'll talk about it another time. But if we didn't have that in the city of Monterey, we'd have almost no affordable housing. We can't get rid of the inclusionary ordinance. We have a 20% inclusionary ordinance. We have about 550 affordable units in the city of Monterey. Almost all of them came from the inclusionary requirement. It's not a bad thing. Don't listen to developers when they say it doesn't pencil out. They say that all the time about everything. I've been here long enough to hear their stories. They can build it if they want to build it. Believe me, they will make money. So let's also talk about identifying land that the government owns and making it available to nonprofit developers. We've done that in Monterey. We've done it successfully. We've built the Van Buren Street project, 18 affordable units for seniors. We built the Monterey Hotel project, 18 other affordable units. And we're in the process of building the Madison Street project, which will be 43 affordable units. 100% affordable because we're contributing the land. I will ask the county staff to identify land that we have that could be developed as 100% affordable.
Thank you. Question?
There was just reference that I think Kate was involved in a project. Do I get to respond to that?
Sure.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
I sit on the Monterey County Planning Commission. Projects come before us. If it's the Ryan Ranch project that I'm thinking of, we have never let a developer get by and say it doesn't pencil out. In fact, my colleague Martha Deal is very tough on developers. Whether or not the project pencils out is not our problem. And we have never taken that as a reason to approve a project that is not going to be in the best interest of the community. We are a fantastic planning commission that I believe has been doing a tremendous job on this particular issue.
Thank you. Question number 7. What are your ideas or thoughts regarding rent control? What are your ideas regarding rent control? First, it will be Bill Lipe, then Alan Haffa, and then Kate Daniels. Mr. Lipe.
Now, this is delving again into the area of telling private property owners what they can do. Everywhere I've seen rent control, I lived in the Bay Area for a number of years. I've read a lot about the rent control in New York City and Manhattan. It generally secures low rent for the folks that get in early, but then it kind of doesn't work after that. People become stranded or in an island, if you will. They can't move about because they're locked into this low rent, and everywhere else is very, very, very high. I honestly believe if we're going to lower rents, we need to build more supply. It's a supply and demand issue, which gets me back to we need to solve the water issue here in this district in order to be able to do the thoughtful development, not sprawling, not just full on, pedal to the metal type of development, but aggressive, thoughtful development that can build up our supply. We can, maintain and hold developers accountable to the inclusionary rules, and let the marketplace take care of itself in bringing these rents down. I know somebody that just rented an apartment here in Monterey, 1 bedroom, $3,800 a month. That is way too high.
Yeah, so I was contacted by a tenant in Monterey about a week ago whose rent had gone up 40%. And so I think it had gone from like $1,800 a month to $2,500 a month. Somehow she managed to find the money. Then, literally a month later, the landlord said, well, now it's $3,000 a month. Now, it's actually illegal. You can't be raising the rent that often and that much because of state regulations. But here's the problem. People don't always know what the rules are. The landlord may not have known the rules, and the tenant didn't understand the rules. So one thing that I would advocate for is that you need to have education for both landlords and tenants. You need to provide mediation services, so when there is a dispute like that, people can work it out, because most people are well-meaning. I also believe you want to do what you can to keep people in their homes. To that end, we initiated a rental assistance program in the city of Monterey before the county did it, before any other jurisdiction did it during COVID. And I'm advocating for us to expand and continue that program. We can do other things to try to protect renters. I do have some of the concerns Bill mentioned about rent control, that it can lead to a lack of investment in more housing, and that the fundamental problem is a lack of supply. We need to build more housing. That will start to get rents under control.
Thank you. Kate Daniels.
So remember, we're County Board of Supervisors, and we would be in control over such a policy for unincorporated Monterey County. And my biggest concern for unincorporated Monterey County is the number of units like guest houses, that technically are not legal rentals, but they supply a lot of our residents with a perfectly fine home. My biggest concern right now would be requiring those homeowners to register their units with the county would be an invitation for for county code inspectors to come in and they would be forced to stop renting that unit. So before I would be comfortable having a conversation about a registry or rent control, I would really need to address with the county, what do we do about the large amount of housing stock in unincorporated Monterey County that's technically not, for lack of a better word, legal. I had a guest house that I lived in once myself, and it was not a legal rental, but it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, fine location to live. So that's something that has to be addressed, number one. Number two, I sit on the Monterey College of Law Board, and I am the chair of the board this year. We do provide low-cost legal tenant rights assistance to anyone who needs that service. So really promoting that to the community, letting people know that services like that are available. And number three, a really robust rental assistance program. We need to keep people in their homes versus sort of exacerbating any problems at this point.
Thank you. Question number 8. The writer of this question feels that something could be done to improve the permitting process for homes. I assume they meant maybe new homes, or perhaps they also meant remodeling and such, perhaps also ADUs. But this person wrote, can you think of a way to streamline the permitting process for homes? We will start with Alan Haffa, and then go to Kate Daniels, and then to Bill Lipe. So,
Well, I appreciate the question. We do need to make it easier for people to cut through the red tape. If you want to remodel your home, or you want to add an accessory dwelling unit, or you want to build a home on an empty lot, it shouldn't take you forever, and it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg. Now, that being said, we do have to make sure that those services which are provided to help assist you are paid for. So in the city of Monterey, we look at what is the cost of providing, the assistance in terms of doing inspections to make sure that the work that's done is up to code. And that does cost money, that costs staff. So we have to make sure that we figure out what is the real cost and charge you a fair fee, but it shouldn't be an exorbitant fee. I also think that those fees should not be sort of a set fee for a particular project, but it should be indexed to the value or the cost of the project. So somebody putting in a $10 million project should pay more for that permitting and that license than somebody who's putting in a bathroom, for $50,000. So I think you have to index it so that those who are doing the most expensive projects are paying their fair share.
Thank you. Kate Daniels.
As a planning commissioner, I have a lot of familiarity with the Housing and Community Development Department, and that's where the planning department resides. And the planning department is a mess. The planning department is one of the most painful experiences, I think, for anybody who goes into the department to try to pull a permit or do some work on their house. There was an audit a few years ago, a report that was drafted that did some good work in the sense that it separated the agency, which used to include Public Works, Planning, and Parks under one umbrella, and they've now separated it into 2 departments. But one of the things that we were able to do at Supervisor Adams' office is the planning department was so behind on various state mandates, state legislations, and ADU law was one of them. We were not in compliance. We did not write an ADU ordinance, an updated ADU ordinance like we were supposed to for Monterey County. And as a result, folks weren't able to do something that legally they should have been able to do. Unfortunately, in the coastal zone, that ADU ordinance is still not complete, and that was several years ago. But what have we done on the Planning Commission? We've done things for ADUs, for example, where we've created designs that are, that anyone can go and pick one of these designs and get a permit very easily within 30 days. It's an over-the-counter permit. That is consistent and helps us stay in compliance with the state law. So more opportunities like that to streamline the opportunities for folks who want to develop on their properties. Thank you.
We live in the era of large language models. There's no reason why someone who wants to add a bathroom or do a $10 million project shouldn't be able to go in and type in what they want to do and have the intelligence kick back. This is all that's going to be required. You shouldn't have to go through the labyrinth of the planning department, and maybe this person will call you back, maybe they won't. Even once you get your paperwork in, it takes sometimes many, many months for anything to actually get done. So I think the process could be really streamlined quite a bit just by using the modern technology we have today. Somebody might type in what they want to do and look at it and go, you know what, I don't want to do that. Or they think, oh, well, this is what I need to do. I mean, it could be an either or situation. But, the planning department, before COVID, I used to spend a lot of time over at Chilling Place, and I'd hear a lot of the staff from the planning department griping about a lot of stuff that didn't really seem to be involved planning. It was just a lot of drama. So I know they split up RMA, Carl Holm ran the whole thing, and they kind of divided it out. But I think it's still yet to be seen a great improvement or a vast improvement over what. And I just think it could be done a lot better if we just got a bit smarter about it.
Thank you. Question number 9. What can the county do to encourage PG&E to underground utilities for fire prevention? Okay, so what can the county do to encourage PG&E to underground utilities for fire prevention? We'll start with Kate Daniels, then Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa.
This is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about because when you talk to PG&E, which I have done in my role as Senator there, they'll say it's too expensive to underground the utilities in places like the Monterey Peninsula. But as we all experienced in last year's winter, where there were power outages for long periods of time, so many trees down, it took us so long to get the power back up because PG&E simply didn't have the capacity that we brought in operators from the entire western United States to help us get our power poles back up and our power back on. That cost alone is far more over time than the front-end investment of undergrounding our utilities. So it didn't make sense to me. But when you realize that it's not PG&E who pays for all that work once we have had a crisis, once a disaster has been declared, there's funding that comes in from the federal government and many other sources for disaster relief that allows for all that work to be done. So what we need is a leader with vision who will work with our state legislators, who will work with the federal government to talk to PG&E themselves, to navigate this conversation and help us get to the point where everybody's on board to make that front-end investment. And when we do that, over time, it won't just be the electricity that goes out, will be safer in terms of wildfire risk, and it will just be, I think, less expensive and better for everyone. Thank you.
Bill Lipe.
Yeah, I live off River Road. We were zone 1A of the river fire a few years back, 3-4 years ago. It was really bad fire. It had nothing to do with power lines. It's just, we want to control fires around here. We need to be more proactive in doing control burns and making sure the overgrowth is taken care of. So we don't have these big fires where the power lines fall on them or lightning bolts strike. As far as PG&E is concerned, I would love to just see them go. I am not even entertaining how to talk with PG&E or negotiate with PG&E. They're just an amalgam of an agency or a company that was formed back in the early part of the 20th century that has just outgrown it. It's outlived its usefulness. We really need to think with water and power to become completely independent for ourselves, whether it's just our county, whether it's a tri-county area or a group of Central Coast counties, so that we can fund these upfront costs to do what we want to do, lower our power bills, and ensure that we have a reliable water supply. Just get rid of PG&E. Let's just do it. And I said, when I was at Farm Bureau, I went to meetings, and believe me, Farm Bureau is very plugged into PG&E because farming takes a lot of electricity to pump water and power everything. And I said it then, and I said it again right now. Let's just get rid of them, once and for all. I'm ready.
Thank you. Mr. Haffa.
Yeah, I grew up in Minnesota, and there are really bad storms. I mean, their storms make our storms look tame. They have blizzards. And you know what we didn't have? Power outages all the time. It drives me crazy. You know, and basically it's because PG&E hasn't invested in their infrastructure. And why haven't they done it? I'm sad to say, but I have no trust in the legislature, Republicans or Democrats. They all get huge amounts of money from PG&E. PG&E is one of the biggest campaign donors to both parties. The legislature's not going to do anything, so we have to do something about it. I believe we can underground. We can do it ourselves. We've just initiated that finally in the city of Monterey. I brought this up at our strategic planning meeting last week, and we're actually going to be having a meeting, or there'll be an agenda item at our upcoming meeting next week, so I encourage you to participate in that. But the county, if the county would do it, it would make it much easier for other cities to jump on board and perhaps to kind of do a collective bond. So we can do it. I'm not at all optimistic PG&E will be helpful, but we can do it if we want to do it, and if we collectively are willing to pay for it. And it will make a difference. You know, those down power lines lead to fires. They also lead to power outages. So there is a definite benefit on both those counts in terms of, you know, fire safety as well as energy resiliency and making sure we have the power we need.
Thank you. Question number 10 is almost a follow-up on this. What can the county do about the lack of escape routes in Monterey? What can the county do about the lack of escape routes in Monterey? Seeing those big fires and just a few places to get out of your neighborhood, I realized I was in that situation. So, Bill Lipe will be first, and then Alan Haffa, and then Kate Daniels.
Well, I sit on the board of directors for the Resource Conservation District in Monterey County, and we received a lot of grant. That agency, that special district, has received a lot of funding for fire, from CAL FIRE in particular. It involves mapping, knowing where all the hydrants are, knowing where all the fire breaks are, knowing where the escape routes are. We just really have to put in more work to get the GIS mapping done, so that we at least know what we have currently. Now, how do you improve that? You know, there are some roads in this county that are just, I mean, nobody's going to widen them, nobody's going to, you know, I used to go back to San Clemente, Rancho San Clemente, back in the preserve back there, and you know, you come to Robinson Canyon Road. What are you going to do with Robinson Canyon Road? It is what it is. If everybody had to get out of their mansions or cabins, it would be a real cluster there. So I think planning, knowing what we have, mapping everything out, making it very accessible and available, educate folks. I think folks that live in those type of areas, Dennis, maybe you included, would readily accept, you know, hey, if I needed to get out, how would I get out? I think more of that work it's being done right now, but more of it can be done, and of course communicating it out to the folks that need to know that, really for the whole community at large, is really the best approach.
Alan Haffa.
One of the reasons that I'm running is because I don't believe that the county government has worked as well as it could with our city governments. So here in Monterey and Pacific Grove and Carmel, the urban part of our district, I feel like we could have better cooperation, better collaboration between county government and our city governments. And nowhere is that more important than when it comes to something like this in terms of emergency response. So what I would ask is that the county staff and the Sheriff's Department work collaboratively with City of Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel, so that we identify those safe routes, and so that the public knows what to do when there's an emergency. You know, I was shocked, I'm sure many of you were, what was it, about a year ago during the storm events, when the sheriff said, oh, prepare for, you know, the peninsula to become inaccessible. Really, we gotta do better than that, folks, and it starts by getting the key players together. I don't have the solution, and as your supervisor, that's not my responsibility to plan out all the routes. My responsibility is to say, this is a priority. Staff, work with these other important staff in the other jurisdictions and get it figured out and make sure everyone understands what the safe paths out will be.
Thank you. Kate Daniels.
I think it's really important to understand the role of a supervisor, especially in this day and age, and it will be my responsibility to plan out all the routes. It will be my responsibility at the end of the day to ensure that our district and our county is as safe as it possibly can be. What does that look like? That looks like working with the Office of Emergency Management. And I know that Supervisor Adams actually has been doing that and is meeting with neighborhood groups and with the Office of Emergency Management to ensure that these communities know where the routes are and where we can do better. We are planning for that. As supervisor, I will do that even more. This will be a top priority for me, and at the end of the day, it will be my responsibility as a supervisor to ensure that things like emergency routes to get out during an emergency are clear and available to everyone. One of the things I saw occur during the pandemic, which I had never seen, I've been around a long time, I had never seen the county and the jurisdictions work together in the way that they did to deal with a crisis like the pandemic. What it made me think of is that it was the first time folks that are in incorporated jurisdictions were able to see the role that county plays in your daily lives. And it was also an opportunity for supervisors and county governments to really remember that we have a responsibility for the entire county, incorporated and unincorporated jurisdictions. So I'd like to build on some of that communication strategies that were developed during the pandemic.
Thank you. The writer of this question feels that urban sprawl is a bad thing. So they've written the question as, what measures will you champion to combat sprawl and instead to encourage infill rather than building out? Alan Haffa will take this question first, and then Kate Daniels, and then Bill Lipe.
So I appreciate the question. This is something that I've been doing. We've done that in Monterey. Well, how did we do it? Well, first of all, we rezoned or upzoned in our downtown to make it easier for there to be redevelopment and increased housing. So we're doing that. On Garden Road, we did that. We're looking at commercial space, and we're making it easier when there's commercial space that's underutilized for it to be redeveloped as housing. We're identifying public land within the urban footprint and making it available to nonprofit developers for 100% affordable. So I think if there's a jurisdiction in Monterey County that is doing a really good job of preventing urban sprawl and building housing where it belongs, we've been doing that. And I will bring that same attitude, that same we can get it done attitude to the county.
Thank you. Kate Daniels.
I would agree with the question that urban sprawl is a bad thing. And what planning commissioners do is they plan growth. That's what we do. We have a general plan in Monterey County that has identified where growth should be. What we need in a supervisor is someone who knows what's in those plans and is willing to uphold them and maintain what's in those really critical documents for Monterey County. I would be remiss to not mention water because there hasn't been a water question, but again, none of this growth will happen in District 5 in the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District area if we don't lift the cease and desist order. Different question, but I just do want to say that. Right now, the housing element that the county has been working on does create some urban sprawl. Unfortunately, it's in locations that are in our general plan as affordable housing overlays, but I still don't agree with it. I think where we should place units are not in big open prairies and dropping 1,300 houses in places like over off of Olmsted Road. Instead, I would like to see us put the housing in our city centers, in our urban centers, where we can take underutilized office space and create apartments. I was at the courthouse just today. The courthouse is moving. It's county property. It's going to Fort Ord. They're going to build a great courthouse. This is a perfect area to have included in the housing element, to rezone and to create some density. This is the type of creative thinking that a supervisor needs to bring to the conversation, so we're planning for the future appropriately. Thank you.
Bill Lipe.
I don't think anybody likes sprawl. We've got it going on in Salinas. There's a huge area of farm ground that's going to be developed into many, many houses. We've got some stuff going on in Gonzales, where they're going to take, they're going to take out some farmland there. You've got issues going on in Soledad as well. I'm a believer in going vertical, steel and glass. I mean, I've been to Vancouver, been to Manhattan, San Diego. You go to these places and, I've been to Israel and been to other places in the world where they just don't have a lot of, I've been to Tokyo recently, last January. They don't have a lot of land to sprawl out on. So what they do is you go vertical with it. And I think density housing has a place here in Monterey County. And I think with the limited amount of land we do have in the incorporated areas, so that we don't encroach on farm ground, we should be doing as much as we can to go vertical with housing units. Again, I'll go back to water. We have to solve that issue before we can really think about doing anything, because if you don't have the water, you're not going to be able to have the units. You talk to the restaurants in Carmel that have to pay Clint Eastwood a bunch of money to mouth house a water company, and he charges $250,000 an acre, which is an insane and gross amount of money.
Thank you. Question 12. What would you do about the mental health problems in the Monterey County Jail? What would you do about the mental health problems in the Monterey County Jail? They have been in the news. First it will be Kate Daniels, then Bill Lipe, and then Alan Haffa.
I think it goes back to the question that we had answered before about WellPath and the folks that are providing the services. We need better services. There's no question about that. And again, it's a question of dignity, of fairness, and also, making sure that the needs of every single resident in Monterey County are being met. So I would definitely not continue to have the services being provided by a continuously failing service provider, and instead look at other resources that we have in Monterey County to make sure that the folks in the jail are getting the mental health services that they need. Thank you.
Bill Lipe.
Yeah, I think it's easy to kick WellPath when they're down, and they obviously failed in a big way. But how do we know that the former sheriff or other folks were telling WellPath, hey, look, we don't have the money to provide the kind of service, so please run it on a razor-thin budget? We don't know that, because there was a lot of secrecy around that issue. And we had legal counsel that was actively hiding stuff, not just from the public, but from the supervisors themselves. So, obviously, people in the jail need to be cared for. If they're mentally ill, it's going to take extra effort to take care of that. But we have a mental health issue outside the jail as well, and we really need to look at this holistically in a way that addresses all of it. I mean, I don't know how many of you get to Salinas often, but there are always people just walking down the sidewalk right in the middle of town or in the business district or on South Main or North Main or wherever, and they're babbling to the sky. They're obviously not well. Hopefully they're not violent, but that's not always the case. So I think we just really need to have a holistic approach to know that there are some people in our community that are really not well. and they're gonna have to be cared for some way, somehow. And it's gonna be up to us to do it because, you know, folks at higher levels of government got a lot of other issues on their mind besides really, I think, trying to fix some of the problems we know need to be fixed.
Thank you. Alan Haffa.
Yeah, I think first of all, I would ask our county attorneys to look at the contract that we have with WellPath and to be really precise about identifying where they're not meeting the legal requirements of that contract. So there are legal remedies, and I think that's probably where you start. And then secondly, we do need to look at getting out of that contract if possible, and ideally, I would ask staff to look at the possibility and the practicality of using our own county hospital to provide those services. So that's how I would go about approaching it.
Thank you. Closing statements, 1 minute. We'll start with Alan Haffa, then Bill Lipe, and then Kate Daniels. 1 minute.
1 minute, wow. Okay, so you know who I am. I've been your public servant for 12 years. I've got the experience. I believe Monterey today is better than it was 12 years ago. It's always been a great place, but it is a much better place, and I think I played a role in that. The skills that I've learned as a city council member, as a school board member, serving on regional boards and commissions, which are the same boards and commissions that supervisors serve on, namely the Associated Monterey Bay Area Governments, the Central Coast Community Energy, and many others, Community Human Services, Monterey One. I've been doing the work. I've been doing the work. I will continue to do the work. I've delivered for the city. I'll deliver for the county with your help, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. Bill Lipe.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It's been a real pleasure, and you've asked a lot of really good questions. I come from a weird part of District 5. It's way out on the north, it's way out on the road. I had our supervisor tell me she didn't think someone from the Salinas Valley could represent District 5. I'm here to tell you different. You had 24 years of leadership in this district that have resulted in zero progress, zero, on solving the water supply issue. I know a lot about water. I've been doing it for 10 years. I've been battling the water agency. I sat on the groundwater sustainability agency, on the resource conservation district board of directors. I go to the podium often and frequently. You can look up in the video archive, you'll find me there in a lot of spots. My commitment to this district is solving this water issue once and for all, taking it off the map so that we never really have to think or talk about it again. I know how to do it. I know how to work with others to get it done. We built 6 sustainability plans over there, very contentiously, by the way. And I'm ready to do the job to bring water supply, abundant water supply to this district. I can do it. Thank you.
Kate Daniels.
Thank you. And the most important thing I want to leave you with is that the role of the supervisor is to listen to all of you. It's to hear what your concerns are and to work with you to resolve key issues. I will be your advocate navigating Monterey County. My experience with Monterey County, I believe, is unmatched in this race. As a chief of staff, as a planning commissioner, I know the county budget. I know the county general plans. I've worked with each of the county departments and many of the agencies. As Senator John Laird's policy advisor, we're tackling some of the greatest challenges that we face. How to fund, repair, and grow Monterey County's water infrastructure. How to increase services and housing opportunities for our most vulnerable unhoused community members. I'm in this race because I believe working with all of you, so much more is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you all very much. Enjoy the cookies and treats in the back. We're here.
Thanks, Ed.